Give me a rainy day, a cup of cocoa, and a good old movie, and I'm as happy as can be. I'm in old Hollywood, where there is beauty, mystique, glamour, the way life should be. In a sense, the way life was in this different era. And I can escape into the past and be one of the heroines in these old movies with all their beautiful clothes, sense of style, and hunky, manly men pursuing them, sometimes more than one. It's a real escape into another time, another place. And it's better than any drug I know of. And I must say it is a bit addicting. Mary Pickford was the biggest female Hollywood star of the silent film era. She started out in vaudeville and worked her way over to Hollywood, becoming famous as a very young ingenue star and played in ingenue roles, much younger than she was in real life. In real life, she was married to an actor named Owen Moore, but in time she happened to meet Douglas Fairbanks Sr. They eventually got married and became the king and queen of Hollywood, having a huge home there called Pickford, which was a destination place for the international set and even royalty. Some say Mary Pickford was the woman who created Hollywood. There is no doubt that the biggest male star of the silent film era was Rudolph Valentino. He was rather an enigmatic character, and I think that is part of his appeal. In those days, it was only Anglo-Saxon men who were thought to be leading men until Valentino arrived. And there was the allure of the exotic man and the unspoken thought of how sexually exciting he would be. And one has to admit, when you look at his movies, especially if you're a female, even today, there is that flesh appeal that people talk about that jumps from the screen. When he is putting his hands on a woman, you almost get the feeling that his hands are on your body, and he's jumping out at the screen at you. And there's a very palpable physicality and sexuality in his movements and in his caresses that it's very magnetic. And if you watch some of his movies, you'll understand, especially in that era that was coming right after the Victorian era, women had never experienced anything like it. So they were very sexually excited watching him on the screen. And usually his film roles were period pieces, and some of them were a little bit much, especially when he was dandified in a few of them. But one that I really enjoy is Cobra, which is more of a contemporary movie for that time. And it's a very touching movie as well, a romantic movie. And you see Valentino as, for that time, a modern guy who's in love with a woman that he can't have. In real life, something about his story pulls at the heartstrings as well, that he was married to Natasha Rambova, who was a costume designer and set director in Hollywood. There have both of them have had rumors of being homosexual or bisexual, but many people today believe that they were part of the Hollywood culture in which people did experiment, but it seems to be that Valentino was straight and really did love Natasha Rambova. They split up, and he died very soon after. Some say even it could have been from a broken heart. There is a physical reason with his ulcers, but as soon as he split up with his wife, his health went very much downhill. I read a couple books on him, and I am a fan of his, and I still enjoy watching his movies. And I find his wife interesting too, Natasha Rambova. I've read a book of hers, a couple of books about her, and I think she was misunderstood. I think that she was just a woman who was trying to make a career for herself, which would be normal in today's world. But she was misunderstood in that place and time and kind of vilified. But Rudolph Valentino, he was such a hunk, and we never forgot him. Bette Davis. She's another queen of old Hollywood, having a career that extended from the 1930s through the 1980s. One forgets how really beautiful she was as a young woman. Some of us remember her in her later years, which she was still a great actress. But I think the thing I really enjoyed about Bette Davis's movies throughout her whole career was that she presented women as multidimensional beings. And her characters were nothing if not multidimensional. There was always something else going on, some other emotion going on under the surface, another thought going on. Some would say her characters were neurotic, but they were always interesting, and she, I think, was a great actress from old Hollywood that should be rediscovered. Robert Montgomery. He is the father of Elizabeth Montgomery, who many of us knew from the Bewitched TV series. But Robert Montgomery was a very big star in the 1930s and 40s. I think I enjoy his movies because he usually plays an upper-class guy with an impish sense of humor who is very funny. He is a great comedian, but at the same time he has this sense of style and can be very aristocratic at the same time also, and is not hard to look at either. Very good looking man. He isn't really that popular today. We've kind of forgotten about him. Is it because we don't really value the suave gentleman upper class type of character as much as people did back then? I don't know, but I do enjoy his old movies, and I think he's worth rediscovering. Robert Montgomery. What a hunk. Barbara Stanwyck. Another one of those strong Hollywood actresses back in that era. There was a whole tribe of them in those days. And she had a long career too, just like Bette Davis, from the 1930s to up to the 1980s as well. I think one of her last roles was in The Thornbirds. And then we remember her on TV in The Big Valley. But as a young woman, she made quite a few movies, and like Bette Davis, she kind of broke the mold and presented women in a multi-dimensional fashion, and sometimes playing them kind of hard-boiled. She'd play lower-class women oftentimes and kind of make us sympathize with the plight of the lower-class woman or the victimized woman. But she never was really a victim. She was always a fighter, and she rose above her problems and sort of helped us to believe that we could do that as well. We can feel all the pain and be hurt as much as any other woman, but when we look at Barbara Stanwyck movies, we know that we can rise above them and be a very strong woman, and life is going to be okay. I really think she needs to be rediscovered. And I must say my grandma used to like her, my mom's mom. She was her favorite actress, and that's kind of what got me into her when grandma would talk about enjoying Barbara Stanwyck movies. I started noticing them more, and I grew to really appreciate Barbara Stanwyck. I think we need to rediscover Barbara Stanwyck and what she offered, the roles that she played, and her place in old Hollywood. Humphrey Bogart. He's another enigmatic Hollywood actor. We think of him mainly as being a bit of a gangster. And what's ironic about that was in real life, he was born to an aristocratic family, very upper class New England family. And he was nothing in real life like his roles, but his background anyway. But we enjoy looking at Humphrey Bogart. He's one of our favorite gangster type of guys. There's something about his portrayal of the gangster and that type of guy and during that era that he brings like a different dimension to them, because he presents that type of man in such a fashion that we realize that there's other emotions going on beneath the surface besides just being a gangster, or kind of a shady kind of character. That there's a sensitivity there. There's a emotional feeling. Usually he's in love with some woman that he's struggling with his feelings over. And so that gives him a type of mystique that on one hand he was this guy from the underworld oftentimes, or some way associated with it. In Casablanca, that's his most famous role. He's Rick, who runs the bar, the tavern, restaurant tavern, and you get the feeling he's a little bit of a shady character, but at the same time he's a very patriotic American. That's what the movie was basically about. World War II took place during World War II, and very patriotic American who is in love with this woman, love and lost this woman, and it gives him a tragic quality and a very romantic quality, and I guess that's why we love that movie so much. But he played other roles as well. He's in a number of movies, and I have to say though that I think my two favorite Humphrey Bogart movies are Casablanca and The African Queen. They're two very different movies. In The African Queen, he is still a type of guy from the wrong side of the tracks type deal, and a drunkard, but very lovable, very funny, and really contrasting character to Katharine Hepburn, who becomes his lover and wife in the movie, and it's a very good movie. So I would recommend both those movies. And Humphrey Bogart, one of our great stars from old Hollywood. Joan Crawford. Yes, I have to admit I like some of Joan Crawford's movies, and I feel she's a little bit misunderstood. I know all about her. I read the book Mommy Dearest and the movie. Some say there were some exaggerations. I'm sure that some of it, if not most of it, was true. But I also see another side to Joan Crawford. In researching her past, you find that she was from like a very poor family. She went through a lot growing up. She didn't have an easy upbringing, an easy childhood, and she made her way up through Hollywood's ranks, not always in the best manner as things went on in Hollywood, but she loved being a star. She loved being an actress. She loved Hollywood, and she worked very, very hard for where she got, and she never took it for granted for a moment in her whole life, and she appreciated every bit of it. And I do think she was a fine actress, and some of her movies are worth watching. She's another one that portrays women in more of a multi-dimensional fashion, and tries to show women as they really are. You get the feeling that she was trying to be a very good actress, and I think she was a good actress. Her movies are worth rediscovering, and let's not forget that as a young woman, she was quite lovely as well. So Joan Crawford's another woman that a lot has been said about her, and some of it's probably true, but she was still a great talent, and she gave her all to Hollywood and was a great star in Hollywood's golden age. Clark Gable, he was a big star in the 1930s, and when Gone with the Wind was made into a movie, the public demanded that Clark Gable play Rhett Butler. And he made a perfect Rhett Butler. He made many other movies besides Gone with the Wind. He always played a man's man, very masculine man, but at the same time, one always felt that there was a sensitivity beneath that rugged exterior, and he wanted to love and cherish the woman he was interested in, and desperately wanted the love returned. And that was, I think, part of his appeal, that this very ruggedly handsome man's man could have this romantic, sensitive side to him as well, and it came through on the screen. In real life, he was married to the beautiful actress Carole Lombard, who was killed in that tragic plane crash, and it affected Clark Gable for the rest of his life. He never really recovered from losing Carole Lombard. Let's just hope they're both reunited now in heaven. Clark Gable, another big star from Hollywood's golden age. Montgomery Clift. He's an acquired taste for many people. I didn't immediately like him as much as I do now in my older years. I'll look at his old movies, and I see something in him that I appreciate now that I didn't see when I was younger. It's a certain sensitivity, a certain raw sensitivity, as though he doesn't have any skin covering his nerves. He's raw feeling, raw pain, vulnerable. He was in real life a close friend of Marilyn Monroe and Elizabeth Taylor. It is said that he was bisexual, kind of confused in his sexuality, that one source says that he was homosexual in sexuality but fell in love with women. Yes, life can be that confusing for some people. People don't always fit into neat categories. But I think it's good to rediscover Montgomery Clift. I really enjoyed his performance in Red River. That's one of his first roles, and he really gave a masculine yet sensitive performance. Of course, he's a gorgeous looking man too. Montgomery Clift. We never really forgot him, did we? Marilyn Monroe. She's still a big star, the biggest star from old Hollywood. Why do we still find her so fascinating? I've even read several books on her life, and I've asked myself that question. Why do I find her so fascinating? I think it's because we all relate to her in a way. She came up the hard way. She was even a foster child. And then she became this huge star, huge international star, who had connections with even the president, President Kennedy, many famous people, men. Now when we look back at her life through modern eyes, we realize that she had addiction problems and alcohol problems, and she may have been bipolar. Yet we still love her and love her movies. I think there's more to her mystique than just that, though. I think that it's also tied in with the mystery of her death. It's most likely probable that she accidentally overdosed. She was always taking sleeping pills along with drinking, which isn't a very good combination. And it's very likely that is what happened. But there's still a question surrounding her death. And supposedly she had this red diary, which she wrote down everything that Bobby Kennedy would tell her. And supposedly there was a book of secrets there. And some have speculated it goes all the way from what was going on in Cuba to even aliens and UFOs. And she was going to get back at the Kennedys and spill the beans and hold a press conference. And that was the reason why she was whacked. Well, it's possible it might have been true. Maybe she was whacked. That adds something to her mystique. There's also her love affair with Joe DiMaggio. It was said that before she died that they were going to get remarried. The whole thing was planned out, and she died right before they got remarried. And of course, she had been married to him previously, but they reunited, and they were planning on remarrying. And he was the one that organized her funeral, and we can still see news clips of him from back in that time being totally heartbroken. And he never got over her for the rest of his life and never remarried. We can only hope they are now reunited in heaven. So we never forgot Marilyn Monroe. She's still a big superstar. The biggest superstar from old Hollywood, Marilyn Monroe.